Perhaps the government and the military establishment had already factored it in, but I suspect they did not expect the ferocity of the reaction. Surprising is not that the arrest happened yesterday. What is surprising is actually that it took so long. It's a point of inflection for Imran Khan and it's a point of inflection for Pakistan. I will not be surprised if there is some kind of a temptation to actually physically eliminate Imran Khan. The developments in Pakistan on May 9th, when Imran Khan was arrested, are not really surprising. In fact, there was an apprehension that if Imran Khan was arrested, there will be a reaction on the streets. Perhaps the government and the military establishment had already factored it in, but I suspect they did not expect the ferocity of the reaction which we saw on the streets of Pakistan, throughout the country in fact, from Karachi to Faisalabad to Lahore, Rawalpindi, Sialkot, most of KP, some parts of Balochistan. I think this was not, the ferocity of the reaction was not expected. One of the reasons why Imran Khan was treated with kid gloves was partly that the army and the government was not very sure how the street would react. And of course, even more worrisome was reports that were coming in that within the army, it was not very clear whether the army would stay united or there would be divisions within the army if any action was taken against Imran Khan. What is surprising is not that the arrest happened yesterday. What is surprising is actually that it took so long. Because in the past, when we have seen somebody carry out a campaign against the Pakistan army or the Pakistani state, the reaction from the state and the establishment has been pretty ruthless. But in Imran's case, he was treated with kid gloves. Ever since he lost the vote of no confidence, he's been on a rampage and he's been treated with kid gloves. In many ways, a kind of a point of inflection which Pakistan has reached. It's a point of inflection for Imran Khan. And it's a point of inflection for Pakistan. Now, Imran had kind of crossed a red line. He had crossed red lines plenty of times over the past 1 year, but I think on 8th of May, he actually breached a very important red line when he directly accused a top officer of the ISI of planning his assassination. Imran and his cult have been targeting the Pakistan army, the army chief, the ISI chief, a number of top generals, apart from, of course, the civilian government. And there has been no real action taken against him. Yes, there were about over 100 cases filed against him, but he was invariably getting relief in each and every one of those cases from the courts, which seemed to be biased in his favor. It is not clear how the situation will unfold from here on. One thing, however, is very clear. In the eyes of the current political dispensation, which is actually all of the politics of Pakistan except Imran Khan's party, all the other political parties are in one way or another part of the current government. So both for the government as well as for the military establishment, or at least the establishment of the establishment, the ruling clique of the Pakistan army, Imran is now an enemy of the state, as is the party he leads, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Both of them are now seen as an enemy of the state. They have targeted the state, they have carried out violence, their cadres have gone out on the street and burned property. They have vandalized memorials of fallen soldiers or Pakistan's heroes. They have burnt buildings, government buildings. They have entered the GHQ. They have burned the house of the Corps commander. They've done whatever they could, whatever came in front of them, they razed it to the ground. And clearly, this is not something which can be forgiven or forgotten. I think what has happened on the 9th of May has breached all the red lines. And after this, to my mind at least, it is very clear that now either Imran Khan will end up as the king and emperor of Pakistan, the man who will rule Pakistan as long as he is alive, or at least that's what he thinks, or Imran Khan will be history. It's very clear to me at least that there is no halfway house. And frankly speaking, given the kind of ruthlessness which the Pakistan Army is notorious for, frankly, I think Imran is now living on borrowed time, not politically but even physically. And I say this with a great deal of caution because frankly, the way Imran Khan has dented and damaged the Pakistan Army, nobody has done it as badly as this even in the past. Not even the Indian Army, which vanquished the Pakistan Army, routed it in 1971 and of course in Kargil, has managed to damage the army as grievously as Imran Khan has done. And this cannot be forgiven. The choice before the Pakistan Army is right now that you either put him in jail, you send him into exile, you disqualify him from fighting elections, you ban his party. But no matter what you do, Imran will continue to hang or loom large over, the Pakistani body politic. If he goes into exile, he will carry out a very, very vicious propaganda from there, to which, as we have seen over the last few months, the Pakistan Army has no answer. And this is not even Imran Khan who is doing it from outside Pakistan. This is some of his cronies who are carrying out a campaign against the Pakistan Army, against the Pakistani state, against Pakistani policies. His people have carried out these ad campaigns on buses, painting the army and the Pakistani state as a rogue entity. So all sorts of things have happened. They can't control it. The Pakistan Army cannot control this if Imran is sent into exile. If he is in jail, he continues to be a kind of a lightning rod for most of the people, most of his cult, or the zombies who follow him. If you disqualify him, it doesn't really matter because then his party is still there. Even banning his party doesn't really make a difference because parties have been banned in the past in Pakistan, and they have re-emerged with a different name. Not just political parties, but even terrorist organizations like the Lashkar-e-Taiba and others, the Jaish-e-Mohammeds, have re-emerged in a different avatar. All that you have to do is change the label, and that's it. You're back in business. I will not be surprised if there is some kind of a temptation to actually physically eliminate Imran Khan. I know it sounds a little far-fetched, it sounds a bit of a conspiracy theory, but if you look at it logically, Imran and Pakistan Army cannot coexist any longer. The violence has come down some, but we are hearing of very disturbing reports coming from KP, parts of Punjab. In Punjab, apparently, the army has been called out. Many people think that this is a precursor to a military coup, and that is imminent. But I don't think if a military coup had to take place, they would call out the army under a constitutional provision. When military coups happen in Pakistan, as a former Pakistani Prime Minister, Chaudhry Shujat Hussain, once very eloquently and succinctly put it, all it takes to mount a military coup in Pakistan is one jeep and two trucks. So you don't need to call out the army to control the law and order situation in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province or in Punjab and then carry out a coup. It might come down to a coup, but I think that's a little far-fetched for now. It might happen in the future, but we'll have to see how the situation unfolds on the ground. This is a show of force. This is a show that the army is behind the government. And because the army is behind the government, it suits the army to back a civilian government and stay in the background, because the civilian government right now is so weak that it is dependent on the army. So the army can get whatever it wants. The civilian government will not hurt the army's interest. If the army was to come out in front, directly take over power, then all the opprobrium would fall on the army. So it's better to operate through, with a civilian facade rather than take over power. So, which is why I think a coup looks unlikely for now. I don't entirely rule it out, but for now it's not happening. They will clamp down really hard on the PTI. Already we are hearing of a number of second, third rung leaders being arrested under various charges, some for disturbing public order, some on corruption charges. There's a plethora of charges on which you can book these guys, but you're catching hold of them, putting them in prison. We've seen scenes of the police or plainclothesmen entering into the houses of some of these leaders, vandalizing those houses, breaking furniture, arresting these guys and taking them away. So this crackdown on the PTI is coming. It's very much happening as we speak. And PTI, frankly speaking, I don't think it has a political future anymore. It will simply not be allowed to win an election. I don't think the Pakistan army or the political establishment which exists today in Pakistan can afford it. So they will go after PTI with a vengeance. Then one of two things can happen. One is that the Pakistan army succumbs to this pressure and says that it is not in a position to restore law and order. It enters into a compromise with Imran Khan, which actually means that the army becomes a kind of a subservient force to Imran Khan. Now, in normal democracies, in normal countries, this is the norm. In India, for example, the army is under the civilian government, whichever civilian government there is. The army has no independent existence or of its own. It is subordinate to the civilian government. There is civilian supremacy in most of the countries, but Pakistan is not a normal country in that sense. But if Imran was to come out on top, then he becomes, like I said, he becomes virtually the king and emperor. He becomes something like what Hitler was in Germany in the 1930s. His party becomes something like the Nazi party, or you might even go to the extent of saying the CCP, and the Pakistan army becomes something like the PLA, which is under the party, not an independent entity in its own right. Now, if a situation like that was to result because the army feels that it cannot take on Imran Khan at this point in time, the army will bide its time and will go after Imran Khan in maybe a couple of years from now, when by all accounts things are not going to improve in Pakistan, things are only going to deteriorate. The economy will continue to tank, Imran Khan will become extremely unpopular, and at that point of time, it will not be a constitutional change of government like happened last year. It will be a violent regime change, a military coup, and then of course Imran Khan will be history then. Which is why when I said that Imran Khan is living on borrowed time now, it is that even if he was to come out on top with what has been happening over the last couple of days, he will still be on borrowed time, because the other side is going to bide its time to get after him. I think if you look at the very meek responses which have come out from the US, UK or some of the other countries, it doesn't look like they will take up cudgels on behalf of civilian supremacy and sanction Pakistan. I don't think that's going to happen. Some sanctions will kick in automatically, but even those will be diluted because at least American laws allow for the dilution of some of those sanctions. There will be certain other repercussions. For example, the Americans will have to vote against Pakistan going to IMF. But again, I don't know how much difference it makes because the IMF is not yet ready to give money to Pakistan anyways. And I think the Pakistanis are seem to be working towards a very low level kind of an economic situation where they'll try and live without the IMF. Although I think just today reports have come out that there are now very dire predictions of an imminent default maybe by the end of next month, by the end of June, if the IMF program doesn't come, and it doesn't look like it's coming. So even if the IMF sanctions kick in, it doesn't really matter because that money was not coming in anyways. The repercussions of that have to be factored in. One repercussion is going to be, for example, economic, that there is no way any foreign investor is likely to come into Pakistan after seeing what has happened. And restoring the confidence of the foreign investors is going to take some doing. It's not going to happen just overnight, especially at a time when the economy is already tanking. The other repercussion has been that the rupee has collapsed today. Apparently, it's breached the 300 mark in the open market, and that has a spiraling effect on fuel prices, on electricity tariffs, on a range of other things. Inflation will most likely go up. So there is that economic impact. At the security level, there is also a looming crisis because while it is true that when you fire on the public in Punjab, it has one kind of an impact and it's far more damaging. But I think it is also important to remember that if you start firing on the public in KP, that has a very serious impact. The situation in Pakistan is extremely serious. I think by the time this podcast comes out, roughly 48 hours would have passed. But I would be very brave or very stupid to predict what might happen in this time period. I think there is a range of possibilities that could happen. But for now, a couple of things can be said. One, Imran Khan is history. Number two, it seems that for now, the Pakistan Army has managed to hold on to its institutional integrity and its unity. They've managed to hold on to it. Many of the dire predictions that the army will split and the army, you'll have a Sudan-like scene where generals are fighting against each other. That doesn't seem to be happening. There were these dark rumors of somebody else taking over, but they were just rumors. That is not happening. So the army is there, it's strong, and the government has shown a degree of spine. The judiciary seems to have gone into something of a shell. They did a show of sorts yesterday when Imran Khan was arrested, but after that, the judiciary seems to have smelled the coffee and understood that there will be a very heavy price to pay if they were going to continue carrying out with their activism. That is where matters stand right now. But perhaps by next week, which is a long time in Pakistan nowadays, maybe the things would have changed completely. But if they have, then we'll talk about it next week.